Some within 30 days, T's and C's apply.
As we wave goodbye to the 2010s, TuneIn is remembering some of the decade's biggest news stories.
In 2011, the Arab Spring sparks anti-government protests across the Middle East and Northern Africa. In 2016, the United Kingdom votes to leave the European Union, forcing the ongoing Brexit crisis. And in 2019, Hong Kong erupts in 6 months of pro-democracy protest against mainland China.
Search news on TuneIn to be there when the next big story breaks.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
And good morning. I'm Karen Moscow along with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. And the opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Asset managers can exceed new thresholds for data management, reporting, and responsiveness. Transform your business with SEI's global operating platform at SEIC.com/IMS. The S&P 500 is higher at the open, up 0.6% or 18 points at 3223. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.5% or 141 points at 28,528. And the Nasdaq's up 1/3% or 28 points at 89.16. 10-year Treasury down 3/32, yield 1.93%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.8% or 48 cents at $60.71 a barrel. COMEX gold little changed at 14.8390 an ounce. The euro 1.1086 against the dollar. The yen 109.37. Lisa and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Here we are, December 20th. Certainly a time to look back on what a year it's been. Equity markets up 27, 28% on the S&P. We've got investment grade bonds up close to 15%. The question now is, as we look towards 2020, what kind of encore can the markets give us? Our good friend Margie Patel joins us. She's Wells Fargo senior portfolio manager. She joins us on the phone. Margie, thanks so much for joining us. Again, a great year for a lot of the financial markets out there. How are you framing 2020 as you look ahead?
I think 2020 is going to be a continuation of the great trends we saw this year. And in fact, I think there's a chance we may see the economy, we saw GDP this morning, 2.1, actually begin to accelerate. So we could actually see the equity market do even better than, say, mid-high single digits, which I'm expecting in 2020.
Margie, how concerned are you that is the solid consensus, that people expect the economy to keep improving, not go too crazy to the point of igniting inflation and having a bond sell-off, but everything will just continue to do well, albeit perhaps not as well as this year?
Well, I think a lot of people are nervous because after you've had basically a decade of the market advancing, people are naturally nervous. But to me, the big change is the Fed has fundamentally changed how they operate. We can count on them not slamming on the brakes the way they have previously. And as long as the fundamentals are solid, which they are, I think the market should expand. The only knock on next year is I do think that the absolute returns will be more modest than this year. In other words, low single digit for equities, mid-single digit for fixed income, only earning a coupon on fixed income rather than what turned out to be a truly spectacular year for the bond market.
We're speaking with Margie Patel, Wells Fargo Senior Portfolio Manager. We're also awaiting some comments at press conference for the post-launch news conference from NASA. That'll be coming from the Kennedy Space Center. We'll bring some of those comments to you, those in moments. But Margie, let's think about 2020. As I look back to 2019, it seems like we had a couple of periods where people were rotating in from the growth to more maybe conservative, defensive sectors and then cycling back into growth. As we think about 2020, how out there on the risk spectrum do you think we should be in terms of, growth versus maybe more value?
I think we still have to stick with growth because growth will be slowing down. And so those companies that can produce some kind of say double-digit earnings growth will be more and more valuable. So I'm not looking to find the undervalued areas. Certainly it's frustrating when every good company you look at that you don't own is probably up 40% year to date. So naturally people want to look more at the bottom of the barrel. But I think it's better to stick with growth at this point.
Margie, what will be the worst performing asset class in 2020?
I think commodities are going to continue to be disappointing on balance, because where you don't have inflation, where you don't have explosive growth from China, that period's done. I think commodities will be rather disappointing.
How about emerging markets? I think, one area that people are suggesting is emerging markets has been a chronic underperformer. And maybe if we get some type of trade deal, even if it's a phase one deal, that might be the catalyst for emerging markets broadly defined. What do you think?
Well, virtually all emerging markets are commodity-based, so I don't see that there's really any driver there to accelerate that. And in particular, because they're commodity-based, they've been very dependent on China. China's growth is clearly slowing down, so I'm even less than lukewarm on emerging markets. They spent the last 10 years doubling, tripling their debt internally. They haven't made fundamental changes in their economy. Now you have commodity price and demand flat or going down, so that's not an attractive picture for me.
Margie, this year, the 60-40 portfolio was amazing. It crushed it on every level. There was a bond rally, there was a stock rally. 60-40 would absolutely have been the right way to go. Why would that not be the case next year? I mean, it sounds like we're setting up for more of the same, albeit less high.
Well, I would say when you just look at the bond math is how much price appreciation can you have when a lot of bonds are running into their call price. That's especially a problem in high yield. The absolute coupons are very low, 2%, 3%, 4%. In other words, right on top of equity dividends. And I think that even if stocks are only up, say 8, 10, 12%, that will still be better than any part of the bond market can produce, just because of the low coupon and the lack of price appreciation.
When you talk about high yield debt, I know you've been cautious in the past about it. I'm wondering, you think that given the call price and where we are, does this seem like an area that's ripe for a correction, or do you think that it'll just cap potential upside?
I think the big criticism of high yield, two things actually. One is you just aren't going to be able to make double-digit returns next year just because of the low coupon, and so many bonds are already trading at their call price. So total returns, 3, 4, 5, 6% are the maximum that you can make there. Secondly, there's actually rather a scarcity of good quality high yield bonds, and I'd say that's going to be the big challenge next year, is what do you buy that's acceptable quality. A lot of the lower tier and even some of the good names have been sucked off into the loan market. They've financed in private equity, and so the demand is very, very high, and I think next year the supply of decent names will be very limited, so that'll be the challenge for investors.
Margie Patel, how about leverage loan market? Is that too much risk here? The risk reward is not there. How do you think about that market?
Again, levered loans have pulled off a lot of the bottom tier supply that would have come to the high yield market. They've gone to levered loan market because they got much better terms, even lower coupon rates. And so if there's risk in the fixed income market, and I think that's very, very modest, I'm not looking for any big explosion. I think the levered loan market might be disappointing because of some of those lower tier names that turn out to have too much leverage, don't have a great business model.
Margie Patel, thank you so much for being with us, and happy holidays to you. Margie Patel is Wells Fargo Asset Management Senior Portfolio Manager, joining us by phone. Interesting to see how the consensus really is solidifying heading into 2020. Yes. The risk assets are going to do pretty well, not as well as they did this year. Some concern about how much bonds can rally given how tight spreads are, certainly on the credit side as well as the Treasury side. This sort of, I don't know, the tension here is not seeing a big spike in yields while also seeing all of this positive stuff on the other side. I'm trying to square that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the expectation is, the assumption is that the Fed is on the sidelines. The assumption is kind of 2% GDP growth, global GDP growth, and there's the assumption is that trade is going to be a relatively benign issue as we go through the year. That's kind of pretty solid, and so the kind of I guess the worry is what's going to upset that.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I'm looking right now at the yield curve at the 210 gap, and it's the steepest since November. I'm just trying to understand, there was a time when people thought the bond market was sending a signal to equities, right? And is the signal now sort of disconnected and bond yields are going to remain really suppressed? But if the Fed's holding the front end lower, I don't know. I just have to wonder, could that be the big surprise? What if we get inflation?
What if we get inflation? We just have not seen that, and the Fed has not seen that, and that's one of the reasons I think they're kind of sitting where they are. But it'll be very interesting to see. The Fed, we believe, is on the sidelines, and that's the key thing.
Right now, let's get the news. We have our own Michael Barr. Michael.
Lisa, Paul, thank you very much. Boeing's new Starliner capsule is off course in orbit after blasting off on its first test flight. Today's liftoff from Cape Canaveral, Florida, marked the start of a crucial dress rehearsal for next year's inaugural launch with astronauts. About a half an hour into the flight, Boeing reported that the capsule did not get into the right orbit to reach the International Space Station. Officials stress that the capsule is in a safe and stable orbit. The editor-in-chief of Christianity Today has published an op-ed calling for President Trump to be removed from office. Mark Galley says the impeachment hearings have made it clear in a way the Mueller investigation did not, that Trump has abused his power for personal gain.
The question is, when does his behavior, which is described as immoral accurately, rise to the level where he's no longer fit to serve office? And to me, we cross that line with the impeachment hearings.
President Trump stated the magazine is far left and will not be reading it anymore. The popular convenience store chain Wawa has just announced a massive data breach. The company says it discovered the data breach last week that had been stealing credit and debit card data from customers since early March. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Poll.
Michael Barr, thank you so much. That NASA press conference is underway. We will bring you headlines as warranted coming forward. Data check right here. S&P up 13 points. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
As we play out the 2010s, TuneIn's looking back at the music trends that defined the decade.
Don't believe me, just watch.
The 2010s saw the rise of the viral hit when meme-ready tracks like Gangnam Style,
Oppan Gangnam Style,
The Harlem Shake,
Do the Harlem Shake,
What Does the Fox Say?
What Does the Fox Say?
And of course, Old Town Road snowballed from internet oddities to global phenomenons.
I got the horses in the bag. Horse stock is attached.
Keep listening to TuneIn for more trends of the 2010s.
4 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Numerous officers have responded to the Winston-Salem, North Carolina Sanitation Department building, where witnesses have reported gunfire. Local reports of over 20 police cars on scene at that building. It isn't immediately known if there have been any injuries. This late update now, police call the situation stable. Lawmakers have left Washington for holiday break with no agreement over how they will handle the Senate trial to consider President Trump's impeachment. Correspondent Suzanne Malveaux.
While Congress is on its winter recess, you have the Senate impeachment trial in limbo as this standoff between Speaker Pelosi and Mitch McConnell intensifies.
Prince Philip, husband of Queen Elizabeth II, has been admitted to a London hospital as a precautionary measure, Buckingham Palace said in a statement. The 98-year-old Philip was admitted for observation and treatment of a pre-existing condition. I'm John Trout.
Deep understanding in record time.
$2 billion, not exactly what they were going for.
They're going to be profitable.
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. equities are moving higher alongside European shares as investors count down to the holiday break. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Right now, the S&P 500 is up 1/3%, or 10 points at 3216. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.3%, or 88 points at 28,466. And the Nasdaq's up 0.25%, or 20 points to 8907. 10-year Treasury down 2/32, yield 1.92%. The yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.9%, or 53 cents at $60.65 a barrel. COMEX gold is down about 0.1% at $1.10 at $14.8330 an ounce. The euro 1.1085 against the dollar. The yen 109.38. U.S. steel is down more than 8%. The industrial icon warning of a fourth quarter loss, announcing it would shut down most of its Great Lakes works near Detroit, laying off more than 1,500 workers and also slashing its dividend. And after hitting a record high yesterday Yesterday, Nike finding it harder to keep investors happy despite posting quarterly results that sail past Wall Street estimates. The shares are down 1.7%, suggesting some investors were looking for an even bigger upside surprise. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Lisa.
Karen, thank you so much. Well, it is week 16 in the NFL. So if you're a fantasy football player, your season's either over or you're playing for a championship. Our good friend Rich Truman, our producer Rich Truman, writes a column every week on Bloomberg Terminal about fantasy football, giving us some of his picks. Rich, thanks so much for being here in the studio, coming out the other side of the glass. What do you like this? Again, we're week 16. This is it. This is when it's really important.
Normally Rich just screams in our ear from behind the glass. Now you're in front of the microphone.
Yes.
And you get to talk about your prowess, your secret gift. It's not such a secret anymore.
No,
you're like absolutely nailing it.
All right, so what do we like this week?
All right. As people who follow this column, all 8 of you, I usually like to go for value picks. I don't go for the no-brainers like Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey, so I call them value picks, using a Wall Street phrase. I'm going with a guy named Phillip Rivers. He's kind of like an Eli Manning boat. The end of his career, hasn't had a good year. He's had 21 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. But he's playing the Oakland Raiders. Now, the Oakland Raiders have given up 32 touchdown passes in the league this year. That's third most in the NFL. So I have a feeling if you're looking for a sleeper or if you're in a league that plays 2 quarterbacks, I'm going with Phillip Rivers. I think he might be able to have a good game to help you get over the top to win the title.
Nice. Another quarterback here for the Dolphins, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a very solid fantasy football player the last 6 weeks since he's taken over. They virtually have no running game, so they're going to have to throw a lot. And they're playing the Bengals, one of the worst defenses in the league. So I think Ryan Fitzpatrick could have another good fantasy game. He's been having a good season so far.
Let's say, just theoretically.
Yes, Lisa.
There was somebody who didn't know that much about this area. Like, just not so much, just
you
a
and my
little
wife.
bit.
Yeah.
All right, just theoretically. How would someone even begin to understand how to, like, put these pieces together? And it's not just listening to Greek when somebody starts talking about box scores and you know, sort of undervalued players and that thing. I'm just theoretically.
Well, that's difficult. I think you have to have a little bit of base knowledge and a little bit of passion for the sport.
I have passion, just maybe not for the sport.
Right, exactly. So you might not be the right person to play in this, Lisa, but you kind of have to have some kind of, like, love of football and a little knowledge of football.
Rich, do you follow? Paul, do you follow this?
I follow the game very closely, but I don't follow fantasy football. But what I do know is the people that follow it are, in fact, passionate, and they, in fact, read this article all the time.
And, Paul, since you brought this up, 2 of my guys I picked last week, Kenyon Drake, who a lot of people have not heard of, especially Lisa Abramowitz, running back for Arizona. I picked him last week. He had 4 touchdowns and 137 yards rushing. And Brashard Perryman, not a household name in the Masser household either. He had 3 touchdowns for Tampa Bay.
I'm a girl. Is that what you just Okay, do you follow this? No. Okay.
She's a Giants. Carol's a Giants fan.
I am a Giants fan. I did grow up with my dad. He had seasons tickets as we got older, and we would go, and he would take, you only had 2, and so we would go to the games. So, yeah, I grew up with it.
And
Built for ourselves, but it's a long time
And Carol goes to the Super Bowl every year for Bloomberg Business Week.
I do. I never get to see the game, but I go leading up to it. It's like a tease.
Right.
Yeah. All right,
Rich Sherman, thanks so much for joining us. A good column. Read it on the Bloomberg Terminal. He's got some value picks for you, and he's got a passionate following. I can tell you that on the Bloomberg Terminal. Puts a lot of time into it. It's a lot of fun.
I'm passionate. I'd like to start.
Okay. Well, there you go. This is the place to start.
Okay.
Carol Master. You know what I just realized today?
Like doing you notes.
Yes. Carol Master. The 90th year for Bloomberg Business Week magazine?
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
Like, get your head around that. It started in 1929, just before the crash. Talk about timing, right? But it's really, like, I had to get my head around it as well. And it initially was called The Business Week, so it's gone through some iterations. But this is what they do. do. The magazine this week, we actually have 3 editors that we can kind of piece together, and there's a little bit of overlap between them, including our Jim Ellis, who is still with Business Week. He's been with the magazine for 40 years. I thought you were going to say for 90 years. Go on. Man, does he look great? Is he going strong?
Oh my
No. He hasn't been there for 90 years. But what's interesting is that there's overlap, and so they all have this, they're able to kind of share the history because editor to editor did kind of pass it down. But it really has been in many ways, the magazine of record in terms of things that are going on in the business world, but it also has always done things in politics, increasingly in technology, and kind of tied it all together, which is what makes it so cool.
And talking about technology, there was a deep dive into SoftBank that I thought was really interesting, especially given the fact that this firm has single-handedly, this company, and their vision fund has single-handedly pushed up valuations across Silicon Valley and created these mega startups like WeWork and Uber that have had a bunch of rocky patches. So what did we learn in the deep dive?
This is a deep dive, and it's Sarah McBride, but it's really several members of our tech team that are really talked to a lot of folks to get an idea of SoftBank, the Vision Fund, and Masayoshi-san, right, who's behind it all. And, they get into that, you can get a different Masa depending on the day. Someone who's very supportive and pushing entrepreneurs, making his investments, and then you can get somebody who's pretty angry at his managing directors and, his team in terms of some of the investments they're making, really kind of push them. But what's really fascinating, too, and I think this plays to the WeWork situation, maybe some of the other investments they've made, they've had so much money to put behind an idea, a concept, a startup company, but Masa really pushes folks to kind of expand the business. Did you think about this, area to go and kind of, for an entrepreneur, maybe take them to places and grow their business, which can be good, but it also grows the valuation, which has also made all of these investments look very good on the balance sheet. But it's fascinating, and there's different individuals. Like, it's complicated in that, a lot of the Vision Fund, huge fund, but a lot of that money comes from Saudi Arabia. Right. So there's a lot of interesting facets to, I feel like, the SoftBank and the Vision Fund story.
Is they're also talking about maybe another Vision Fund?
Yeah, they're trying to get money for it, and they've been looking to the Middle East and others, and we'll have to see. Like, this year, I think, because of WeWork, has made everybody say, well, wait, what? Let me take another look at this mo.
And actually, yes, they've raised money from the Middle East, but it's actually in the form of loans. A lot of the money is coming to them in the form of being lent to them, and SoftBank can pay and agree to pay about 7%, 7.5% coupons on that debt. So it's basically debt finance, which brings us to Peter Coy's story talking about bubbles.
I love this story, and he basically asked the question, in order for there to be growth in a developing nation, do you have to somehow create an environment that creates a bubble, whether it's a housing bubble, whether it's a tech bubble? And so he really looks into that story, looks at the history that we've seen, and that maybe that's a part of the environment. I think it's just something that, especially where we are right now, Peter starts off the story saying, here we are, we just continue to see certainly U.S. equities grind higher and higher, valuations getting pricier and pricier. And you would think at this point investors would be like, I'm backing away from this, and yet you really don't necessarily see that. So just taking a look at the bubble environment. And I have to say, Peter, wearing several hats, do we have enough time?
Yes.
He talks about carbon capture, this whole idea of basically kind of vacuuming up carbon that's out there in the environment, and how there's a couple of companies that are working on this technology. It's been kind of expensive, so they're trying to figure out how to bring down the price. And the idea is this is maybe another thing that we're going to need in terms of cleaning up the environment. Not that you would get away from, alternative fuels and so on and so forth, but just another thing that we need to consider, which I think is really wonderful. And do you use vanilla?
No.
Yes.
Well, then I'm going to talk to you, Lisa.
Okay, please. I follow.
Okay, you should do the headlines. Go ahead.
Okay. Carol Master, Bloomberg Business Week. Read the magazine. It's out.
Yes.
The 90th year anniversary. Very, very cool. Carol, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Some more headlines out on the Boeing. Boeing expects the Starliner to return to Earth within 48 hours. We'll come back to its landing area in New Mexico Sunday morning. So it's interesting. They're saying now that Starliner was using the, quote, wrong mission timer, and it's unclear why that happened. So there's a lot that
what does that mean?
I don't know, but it doesn't
wrong
sound
mission
good.
Timer.
When I'm thinking rocket science, I want to make sure I'm using the right mission timer.
Was it not supposed to come back in 48 hours? Wasn't it supposed to be? Was it supposed to be a longer
how long the
mission?
mission was supposed to be, but they're not even going to get to the space station, which is the failure there. But the good news is they're going to be able to retrieve it.
Yeah, and we're seeing Boeing shares down just a touch, 0.7%. But wrong mission timer. What is a mission timer?
I don't know.
Is it like
Can I just say it's not been a good week for Boeing?
No, but is it?
They really needed.
There's a story in the magazine about Boeing. By the way.
There you go. Good. Like she got it in from New York. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Ah, Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land your next role with the LinkedIn app. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. And sometimes all it takes is one LinkedIn connection to land the job that's right for you. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and find the job meant for you. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
Ah, Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Central capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Where's your views on the municipal bond landscape?
The market does not like uncertainty, does not react well to uncertainty.
There's a whole lot of optimism around the valuation of Uber.
What is Ford saying about the self-driving car?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Maybe we're getting hooked on debt and low interest rates.
The black hole called power could be a bigger black hole.
A toxic brew of slower revenue growth.
There is now this belief that Amazon maybe can do anything.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up another day, another record. We're ending the week this Friday, ready to cap out the best December performance for the S&P 500 since 2013. We're going to talk about how long that can last, whether it's going to be a show me the money year in 2020. Plus, we're going to take a look at how the world is facing a trash glut after China banned importing some of the recyclings from the United States. Right now, though, let's head over to Karen Moscow for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Lisa, thank you. And we are watching some breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg. American spending picked up in November and income gains top projections, offering hope for a solid holiday shopping season and indicating household consumption will continue to be the economy's main driver at year end. Purchases, which account for about 2/3 of the economy, rose 0.3% from the prior month after adjusting for inflation, following a 0.1% increase in October. While U.S. consumer expectations for inflation over the long term fell to the lowest on record in December, that's according to the latest University of Michigan Sentiment Survey. Respondents expect annual inflation of 2.2% over the next 5 years. Meanwhile, stocks are on the rise, as you mentioned. S&P 500 up 0.4% or 12 points at 3217. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.4% or 107 points at 28,483, and the Nasdaq's up 0.2% or 17 points at 8904. 10-year Treasury down 4/32, yield 1.93%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 1% or 62 cents at $60.56 a barrel, and COMEX gold is down 0.1% at $1.50 at $14.8290 an ounce. The euro 1.1084 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.42, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Lisa.
Karen Moscow, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Bloomberg Markets today is brought to you by Adipar. Adipar's portfolio reporting and insights platform is trusted by thousands of wealth advisors from family offices, RIAs, and large financial institutions. Learn more at ADDEPAR.com. Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, we've got another up market. What is driving it today? What are you looking at?
Well, one thing that really jumps out in early trading is what's going on with the cruise lines. And Carnival, one of the last companies in the S&P 500 to report earnings in this year. Numbers came out right before the opening bell, and they went over pretty well.
Do you cruise, Dave? Are you a cruise guy?
You know, I've done it once.
That is the way that is the term. Do you cruise?
Do you cruise?
Yes.
That could be, wow.
I know you could have taken it that way.
Yes, it could be. But I have been on a cruise ship. I'm not
nice pivot.
A regular cruiser. Let's put it
Lisa,
that way.
have you been on a cruise ship?
Not a real one. No.
Neither have I. Okay.
I'm not a big cruise person. I got to
passionate cruise.
You know, Carnival's up more than 7% in the wake of their results, and biggest gain the S&P 500. And then you look at their competitors. Royal Caribbean's up 2.5%. Norwegian Cruise Line up about 3%. Carnival, this gain holds up, would be the biggest in a decade for the stock. That's saying something.
That's saying something. Meanwhile, what else is saying something is Nike shares, which are lower after their earnings, as the headline says, failed to wow investors. And basically, this is just high expectations that have been built into the shares that have reached record highs, right? Am I mischaracterizing this?
I mean, Nike shares had been up 36% and change this year. They set a record just yesterday. So, you get the numbers that come out for their latest quarter. Sure, earnings and sales ahead of estimates, but their profitability measured by gross margin, not quite what investors were looking for, just a little bit of a miss there, and that was enough. Any disappointment can definitely take down a stock after a run like it's had. And so the fiscal second quarter figures come out and the stock goes down.
Boy, one stock that could really use a break, and they did not get it today, was Boeing. I guess we have to call that a failure now with their rocket launch. It launched successfully, but it's not going to dock with the space station. Stock's off about 0.5% today.
Yeah, of course, they at least did get a little bit of good news.
Yeah, it looks like
not all bad.
Brazil,
the country's regulator allowed them to go ahead and combine with Embraer, the regional jet maker. Now that deal is coming closer, and let's face it, Boeing can use the help in a sense because you've got the 737 MAX production being suspended next month. And a company that makes a lot of the components for that plane, Spirit Aerosystems, following suit today. That stock's down a bit more than 1%. So, Boeing has definitely had a challenging year, to say the least.
All right, Dave Wilson, I gave you an assignment a couple days ago, and I'm going to make good on that assignment. And that is, I wanted you to find your favorite chart of 2019. Here we are. It's a Friday before I leave for vacation for a week, which therefore means that few people are going to be around. What's your favorite chart of 2019?
What's my favorite chart?
You didn't think about it? You didn't think about it. You didn't do it. You didn't do the assignment. Well, forget about it. All right, I'll switch. I'll pivot. All right, fair.
Because I can go back and using, the Bloomberg terminal, I can see which charts of mine were the most popular.
Oh. You're going to be objective about this.
Yes, because it's all about data here at Bloomberg. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, it was back in August, and it had to do with, transportation indexes that were pointing to a recession. So it goes to show you what the mentality was back in August. And it also shows you, given that we're looking at it 4 months later, how much things have changed.
Yes, actually. And this brings me to actually where I was going to go, which is the income data.
I'm glad to get you there.
You got me there, and it was great. But the U.S. consumer spending and income gains topped projections. We got this data out just moments ago, about 6 minutes ago. And this is really interesting to me because it shows that people are getting paid more. And it raises the question of inflation at a time when people are really sanguine about it going into 2020. They don't think it's going to pick up. They're expecting Treasury yields to fall further, even on the long end, even though they're heading toward 2% right now. And this, to me, is really interesting. Where am I wrong, Dave, in looking at this and saying, this seems to raise the issue of inflation?
You think I'm going to argue with you?
Yes, please.
I'm
looking for an argument.
Friday before the holidays? I don't know. I mean, you look at the results out of the Carnival, and you have to wonder, sort of the same thing. I mean, think about it. Companies' business is looking good here. I mean, that tells you something right there. They're talking about 2020 profit being higher than analysts were expecting, at least the ones that we've surveyed. So, you put it all together. I mean, consumers are spending and holding up the economy as manufacturing not doing so well.
They're spending on experiences is what we've been told by a lot of folks.
That's what we do.
Yeah, and we see that Disney, their theme park business, outside of Hong Kong, very, very strong. Their cruise business is a very high-end cruise business, family-oriented cruise business. That does great. They can't build their ships fast enough, and those are billion-dollar investments.
Did you take your kids to Disney World?
No.
Disneyland?
No.
Have you been to Disney World or Disneyland, Dave?
I've been to Disney World, not so much Disneyland. And,
just wondering. I
know people who go like twice a year.
Yes.
I know, I do too. I'm just actually, I feel like the world is sort of bifurcated in those that go and those that don't go. I don't know.
Now that my kids are adults, they're going on their own because they're like, you failed us as parents. You didn't take us to any of these Disney properties, so they're going on their own.
My parents took me once to Disney World, and it was they were like, this is...
You know what that means, though? Disney has a certain amount of pricing power, and that gets you to inflation.
There you go.
There you go.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thanks so much for joining us with some color there. I tell you, the cruise business, that has been a resilient business, and it's one of those expenditures that you really look forward to the health of the consumer because it's very much a discretionary expenditure, and it's a big ticket item too.
It is a big ticket item. It also was impacted by some of the sicknesses and some of the issues, but obviously not that much because people really come back.
Yeah, it's just amazing, and the capital investment required for that industry. It's really substantial, and that's why we've seen a lot of consolidation in that space. And but it is a solid business, and it's been a great business for the Disney company. Again, those ships are very expensive, north of $1 billion, but they can't build them fast enough. So again, another data point: the consumer is strong. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington D.C. to Nathan Hager for World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Paul, big setback for NASA's plans to send Americans back into space on its own.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff, the rise of Starliner.
The launch of Boeing's CST-100 Starliner crew capsule went well, but about 50 minutes in, the ship was reported out of position to begin orbital insertion burn. NASA says that meant it burned more fuel than anticipated, so now it won't be able to reach the International Space Station as scheduled tomorrow. Boeing now says the capsule will return to Earth within 48 hours. Boris Johnson's bid to pull the UK out of the European Union next month is on track. The House of Commons, with its new, bigger Conservative majority, has given preliminary approval to the Prime Minister's Brexit bill that has Britain out of the bloc on January 31st. Johnson says it's time for the country to unite.
Filled with renewed confidence in our national destiny and determined at last to take advantage of the opportunities that now lie before us.
The bill only gives Johnson 11 months to negotiate a long-term trade deal with the European Union. President Trump is blasting a Christian magazine that called for his removal from office in an editorial last night. On Twitter, the president called the Billy Graham-founded Christianity Today a far-left publication.
His characterization of us as being far-left is far from accurate.
Christianity Today editor-in-chief Mark Galley wrote the editorial.
We consider ourselves, and most people consider us, a pretty centrist magazine in the evangelical world. We're certainly not far right, and I suppose anyone who's not far right, he would consider far left.
Global news, 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
Event risk is taking center stage for traders.
Nathan Hager.
We get a policy decision from the Federal Reserve.
And Karen Moscow.
It is the fifth major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance?
Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The extraordinary sale is now on at Bicester Village, with up to 60% off the recommended retail price at participating boutiques until the 24th of December. Enjoy luxury for less at Emma Bridgewater, The White Company, Molton Brown, The Creuset, and many more. With free parking, all-day festive dining, and restaurants open late, it's the perfect time to do your Christmas shopping. The extraordinary sale at Bicester Village.
At Asda this Christmas, our whole basted turkey is just £4 a kilo, and our Growers Selection vegetables are only 20p per pack. Get a broccoli, 1 kilogram of carrots, and 500 grams of parsnips or sprouts. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores subject to availability. Broccoli, 360 grams, ends 26th of December.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Whether you call yourself a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something else, the road to 2020 is on TuneIn.
What a night! And a complete earthquake. This was
Follow every step of the Democratic primaries while hearing the latest headlines from the White House with live 24-hour news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Talk, and more.
We're closing in on the first results in the battle for the White House.
Experience the election through the sources you trust with the nonstop news channels on TuneIn.
As we play out the 2010s, TuneIn's looking back at the music trends that defined the decade. The 2010s saw yet another revolution in the way we listen to music. With music fans giving up CDs and digital downloads for streaming services and internet radio like TuneIn. At the same time, vinyl sales continue to rise to levels not seen since the format's original decline. Keep listening to TuneIn for more trends of the 2010s. This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
One of my favorite days of the month, quadruple witching day, and U.S. equities are moving higher alongside European stocks. Investors are counting down to the holiday break. The dollar is edging up. The treasuries are edging down. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.4% up 12. Dow's up 0.3% up 86, and the Nasdaq's up 0.25% up 21. The 10-year's down 1/32 with a yield of 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude has dipped below $61 a barrel, down 1% at $60.56. COMEX gold's down 0.1% at $14.83.10 per ounce. The dollar yen 109.37. The euro $1.1082, and the British pound at $1.3042. American spending picked up in November, and income gains top projections, offering hope for a solid holiday shopping season and indicating household consumption will continue to be the economy's main driver at year end. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, have you ever stepped back and thought, where does all the world's garbage go?
A lot.
I never did until
Really?
I saw a recent Wall Street Journal article talking about it, and they said most of it has been going to China historically, but now China's saying, gee, maybe not anymore. Julia Atwood, head of advanced materials for Bloomberg NEF, joins us to chat about this. She's in our Paris office today, lucky for Julia. So, Julia, this was an interesting story. Again, a lot of trash historically has gone to China for processing. Then, I guess, starting last year, they said, we're not really interested in your trash. What's the story here?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the story is really interesting, especially because China is kind of half of it, and then the circular economy is the other half of it. So what China said was, we don't want your trash anymore because it's too dirty, it's too poorly sorted, and we think of it as toxic waste. So they basically said, we are moving towards advanced manufacturing. We want to make the really difficult stuff. We don't need any more waste plastic to use to make toys or simpler products. So they called it their national sword policy, and it was really about how they're changing their manufacturing focus and the quality of what they were getting from other countries.
Julia, I think about this all the time, in part because I'm trying to understand. Let's say you get takeout Chinese food and you're going to recycle the plastic containers. How much do you have to wash them in order to have them properly recycled? I know this is crazy to be talking about this, but it goes to the fundamental heart of this, right?
It does, absolutely. Because it's a totally different story if you've got something that's really clean and really well sorted, because then recyclers can get a high value product out of it at the end. So the recyclers would tell you, my God, put it in the dishwasher, have it cleaned, sterilized, and put it into a completely separate bin. So they want something perfect.
Why? So they want something perfect. Why can't we come up with technology that just does that? I mean, because if that's the huge obstacle between reusing and not reusing, it's going to take a whole lot of education, luck, and probably failure to get this right. Why can't we just come up with better technology?
Well, we have, because I think a lot of people have realized that trying to convince a mass of consumers is difficult, and you want to be thinking about asking companies to do something because they're kind of a point source for all of these products. So there are better technologies on the sorting side, whether you're using robotics or computer vision to pick out the right plastics. But what's also really interesting is that the packaging makers themselves are going back and looking at their design and saying, what can I do to be better? And then there are some companies who are just sidestepping the whole thing completely, looking into new processes like chemical recycling that can deal with a few more contaminants. So there are a bunch of ways that we can sidestep these problems through better technology.
Julia, can you give us a sense of how the world has done in terms of recycling, or maybe how the Western developed world has done? I mean, over the last 10 or 20 years, is the world recycling materially more than it used to?
Not really. It depends on which country you pick. The really standout example, the people who've done very well with their recycling, is actually South Korea. And the reason why they did so well is because they introduced something called a pay-as-you-throw scheme. So they actually got charged by the amount of waste per household they were generating, rather than just having a flat fee buried somewhere in your taxes that you can't see. Now, in Europe, in the U.S., we've actually seen some recycling rates starting to go down because it's just getting too expensive for municipalities to do.
So what's the U.S. going to do with China now rejecting our recycling?
Well, what I think is the most interesting part of this whole question is how other parts of the supply chain have started to get involved. So China saying we're not going to take plastic waste made all the waste managers sit up and take notice. But what's happening at the other end of the supply chain is consumer companies are coming under pressure to be more sustainable and recycle more because of all the terrible images of plastic waste in the ocean. So what started to happen, especially in the U.S., is these brand owners have said, we can't be held responsible for this. We have to start making investments. So we recently saw Nespresso give over $1 million to a recycling company to install a new line to recycle those little aluminum pods for your coffee. So the waste managers are kind of sitting around saying, okay, when do I get my $1 million? Like, when is the brand coming to the rescue to help us fix our recycling infrastructure? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Keurig Dr. Pepper, together, they're putting $100 million into better curbside recycling. So really, it's the companies that are leading it, not the policymakers.
All right, Joey, just a quick question. If the garbage isn't going to China, where is it going?
A lot of it is actually being stored in Japan. They just have massive storage facilities that are holding on to the waste and hoping prices are going to increase because most scrap is actually traded. And there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel because we're starting to see prices for the kind of plastics that go into detergent bottles actually being higher than new material. So the markets are going to rebalance.
Julia Atwood, thank you so much. Really interesting. Julia Atwood, head of advanced materials for Bloomberg, the BNEF, Bloomberg New Energy Finance. She is normally based in New York, but in Paris today. And I got to say, I think about it all the time. You started by asking, how often do you think about it? And I think about it all the time because I think about how much to clean each item. And then if you end up washing it with a lot of water, is that ineffective or effective? I mean, I know I sound really tortured when I go into this, but I think about it every time there's some plastic container. It's like, well, how much effort should you put into making it spotless?
It's interesting, here at Bloomberg and all the Bloomberg offices around the world really, really focused on recycling and really take the time to have all the separate bins and separate it, and we have all the compostable things. I just wonder what other companies and what other households, to what degree are they taking it? I just don't know.
Well, and at what point do you just bring your own dish? I mean, I'm serious. Like, at what point do we just stop with the disposable stuff? I don't know. Interesting questions. Right now we are looking at new highs on the S&P and NASDAQ. From New York, this is Bloomberg Markets.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are moving higher this Friday. Markets are expected to be volatile as major indexes are rebalanced and options and futures on indexes and stocks expire in what's known as quadruple witching. It takes a lot to keep Nike investors happy. Quarterly earnings beat estimates. Still, the stock is lower in trading as many were expecting a bigger upside surprise. Apple is said to have a secret team working on satellites and related wireless technology, looking to find new ways to beam data such as internet connectivity directly to its devices. The iPhone maker has about a dozen engineers working on the project with the goal of deploying the results in 5 years. And Fiat Chrysler is making an all-out push to clear away tens of thousands of vehicles that its dealers haven't ordered. The automaker is offering its most aggressive discount since the financial crisis to sell certain 2019 model year cars under its Dodge, Jeep, and Ram brands. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land your next role with the LinkedIn app. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. And sometimes all it takes is one LinkedIn connection to land the job that's right for you. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and find the job meant for you. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
The extraordinary sale is now on at Bicester Village, with up to 60% off the recommended retail price at participating boutiques until the 24th of December. Enjoy luxury for less at Emma Bridgewater, The White Company, Molton Brown, The Creuset, and many more. With free parking, all-day festive dining, and restaurants open late, it's the perfect time to do your Christmas shopping. The extraordinary sale at Bicester Village.
At Asda this Christmas, our whole basted turkey is just £4 a kilo, and our growers selection vegetables are only 20p per pack. Get a broccoli, 1 kilogram of carrots, and 500 grams of parsnips or sprouts. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores subject to availability. Broccoli, 360 grams, ends 26th of December.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year?
I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Along the goal line, Martin scores! He takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
In the move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the Van Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA today to start listening.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Well, satellites are certainly in the news today. We have our good friend Shira Ovide. We'll talk about Apple and what it may be doing in the world of satellites. Plus, we'll talk to Peter Kenny, founder of Strategic Board Solutions, on his outlook for markets going forward into 2020. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, Paul, the S&P is up from yesterday's record close, led by tech and healthcare shares. I just had to glance to make sure it's still that way. The stocks, Europe 600 also jumped above its previous all-time high. Both markets are expected to be volatile as major indices rebalance, and options and futures on indices and stocks expire in what's known as quadruple witching. How about the Fed? Steve Blitz, T.S. Lombard, Managing Director of Global Macro Information, tells Bloomberg the Fed will not stay on the sidelines in 2020. Mr. Blitz says that though they will not stay on the sidelines, what they will do is continue to monitor the situation as it develops. Let's hear from him now.
They're on the sidelines in terms of a policy decision on rates, but they are adding liquidity into the system. And it's lifting equities, it's tightening corporate spreads, it's removing the Fed from being in a position of underpinning the dollar, and all of that should help growth as we get towards mid-year.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.5%, up 15. Dow's up 0.3%, up 96, and the S&P's up 0.3%, up 11. 10 years up 1/32 with a yield of 1.91%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is down 1.3% at 60.39 a barrel, while COMEX gold's little changed at 14.8440 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.37, the euro $1.10.87, and the British pound $1.30.69. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Well, it does look like we are getting something from Apple when it comes to satellites and the infrastructure that they're creating in order to have faster, better, more reliable access. Shira Ovide is here shrugging her shoulders, making some interesting faces. She's a columnist covering tech.
Thank goodness this is radio. Nobody can see me.
Actually, not thank goodness. Honestly, these are fantastic expressions and sort of say everything that you need to say. You're dubious. Okay, just hold on a second. Just by your shrug and the face that you just made. Bloomberg opinion columnist Shira Ovide, my guess is that your take on this is that it's a pie in the sky kind of investment that is something that they can do with their oodles of cash and that seems feasible.
Maybe, yeah. So I think my reason for the shrugging is that there are a lot of companies working on what are called kind of low Earth orbit satellites that are, in theory, will be used to provide better or more available mobile internet service. So, Jeff Bezos, both Amazon and his Blue Origin space company are working on a project. So is SpaceX, the Elon Musk company. There's a number of smaller startups like OneWeb that are also working on these projects. And the idea seems cool, right? It's that right now providing mobile internet, it requires a lot of physical infrastructure on the ground, right? You have cell phone towers and all these base stations. And as we move into a 5G world, there's going to be even more of these necessary to kind of provide efficient and reliable mobile internet. And so the idea is if we can fire a whole bunch of satellites into space, that may be a more effective solution to provide mobile internet, particularly in places that are rural or remote, either in the developing world or in places like the Arctic or Alaska or rural Iowa or whatever. But it's going to be very expensive, yes, and it's going to take a very long time, and there's legitimate questions about whether any of this stuff is technologically feasible.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we also saw today with the Boeing launch and then the failure to reach the space station. The satellite business is a tough business. There's a lot of failed satellite companies out there, and there's a lot of bondholders that are holding on the paper, and they're really concerned. There's spaces literally littered with failed satellites up there. If you're at Apple, I guess the question a lot of investors have is, because I think the surprise a lot of investors is it better to kind of do it yourself or just kind of outsource it, I guess?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And you're right. There are a lot of failed satellite companies out there, including satellite broadband companies. So we'll see how this progresses. On the other hand, look, we do want companies, particularly companies like Apple that throw off lots of cash, to invest in in promising future projects. And we talked about earlier with Amazon, right? We've seen the investments they've made in their infrastructure with things like warehouses and their delivery operation, that has really paid dividends in transforming the company and getting packages to people's homes faster.
I have a crazy idea, and we were talking about this with John Butler of Bloomberg Intelligence earlier. Why doesn't Apple, with its crazy boatloads of cash, just buy AT&T? Or buy Verizon?
Okay. I mean, it's a totally fair question.
Thank you.
And look, we have seen circumstances in the past where Google, they did not buy one of the telecom companies, but they did have their own internet and cable television company, which they have significantly scaled back because they felt that they couldn't really make it work on a large scale the way that, the sort of Comcasts and AT&Ts of the world make it work.
It's interesting. I'm looking at the Apple shares, 52-week high today. Stock's up 78% year to date. Market cap of $1.25 trillion. Sure, it just seems like whatever they're doing, shareholders just love it. So I guess the big issue for this company has been, can it pivot from a phone-only company, handset-only company, to a more of a diversified services company? Looks like the market's saying yes.
I think that's right. The market is saying yes. I certainly have doubts about whether that transformation is real. It is very interesting to look at what Apple is spending money on. So this is a company that has, as a share of revenue, tripled their expenditure on research and development the last 5 years. That Apple, for a tech company, is still spending a relatively small share of their revenue, about 6% of their revenue, on research and development projects. So that's everything from the stuff that is going into phones right now to these kind of future satellite projects and augmented reality glasses and driverless cars and whatever comes next. So I think investors have been very willing to be patient on seeing some of those longer term projects pay off. It is right now affecting Apple's profit, that you see the profit margin at Apple has gone, the operating profit margin used to be 29-30% 5 years ago, and now it's 24%. It's at the lowest level it's been in a decade. And one big reason for that is this heavy spending on research and development.
24%. It's still.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
I mean,
exactly. Yeah, fair enough. It is still a massively profitable company.
Sure, thanks so much for joining us. Shira Ovide, Bloomberg Opinion Technology columnist. You can read all of her work and all the other great work done by our folks at Bloomberg Opinion at Bloomberg.com/opinion or on the terminal at OPIN Go. They do fantastic work, really giving you, I think, unique views into a lot of industries, a lot of companies, a lot of the news items going on, and they're really well informed. I heard you to read that Bloomberg Opinion work. Outstanding stuff on the terminal and on the website. Now let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Nathan Hager for World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Paul, NASA's bid to send astronauts back to the International Space Station without Russia's help has hit a snag. Boeing's new Starliner crew capsule is going to be coming back to Earth much earlier than expected after it flew off course following launch this morning. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine.
The spacecraft tried to maintain a very precise control that it normally wouldn't have tried to maintain, and it burned a lot of prop in that part of the flight.
Because of that prop or fuel burn, Bridenstine says the craft will not be able to reach the International Space Station as planned tomorrow. It is now expected to land in New Mexico as early as Sunday morning. President Trump says he has had a very good talk with Chinese President Xi Jinping about the Phase 1 trade deal. In a tweet moments ago, the president said China has already begun large-scale agricultural purchases and a formal signing is being arranged. No further details beyond that. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro.
When we talk about this idea of a trade war, we're not really in a trade war with China. What we're in is a long-term battle over competing economic systems.
Later today, the president signs a massive defense authorization bill before heading to Florida for the holidays. Meantime, the president's been railing behind closed doors about Speaker Nancy Pelosi holding off on sending articles of impeachment to the Senate. In an interview on Fox News last night, Republican Senator and close Trump ally Lindsey Graham said the president wants his day in court. Pelosi said she's waiting until Senate Republicans offer more details about how they would handle the trial. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
What if your email was organized by project and not by date? What if everyone looked at the same thing instead of their own inbox? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Forget your fragmented, jumbled inbox and make the change to channels in Slack. Spaces dedicated to individual projects, topics, or teams. All your communication is neatly organized and everyone is on the same page. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
Hello, I'm Jo Brand. When I see people homeless over Christmas, I find it really upsetting. Whether they're sleeping in doorways, on buses, or in hostels, it just shouldn't be happening. But it doesn't have to be like this. This Christmas, crisis centres across Britain are providing warmth and safety, plus long-term support to find people a job and a home. Please reserve a place for someone at Crisis this Christmas for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk now. Thank you.
Take 26.
Enjoy Taylor's Select Reserve Port, available for just £7.50, or Oyster Bay Sauvignon and many more for just £7 each.
I know it's Christmas, but you're getting overexcited again.
Our latest deal, Co-op, is what we do.
Offer subject to availability until stocks last on selected lines. See participating stores for details. Offer ends 3rd of January. Please drink responsibly.
Far wing elevates. Triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the Van Fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA today to start listening.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
As we play out the 2010s, TuneIn's looking back at the music trends that defined the decade. The 2010s saw yet another revolution in the way we listen to music. With music fans giving up CDs and digital downloads for streaming services and internet radio like TuneIn. At the same time, vinyl sales continue to rise to levels not seen since the format's original decline. Keep listening to TuneIn for more trends of the 2010s.
With 2020 on the horizon, TuneIn continues looking back at the stories that shaped the 2010s.
In 2011, Osama bin Laden is captured and killed by U.S. Special Forces after a decade-long manhunt. In 2016, Donald Trump is elected the 45th President of the United States after securing 304 electoral votes over Hillary Clinton's 227. And in 2018, a UN report stating the world has 12 years to prevent irreversible climate change.
Search news on TuneIn to be listening when the next decade's big headlines break.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
3 U.S. stock indices have pushed higher again today into record territory. The S&P is on track to close out its 10th winning week in the last 11. Trading could, however, be a bit lumpy today. Contracts are set to expire for futures and options on indices and stocks in what's known as a quadruple witching day. We look at the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 0.5%, up 15. The Dow's up 0.3%, up 95. And the Nasdaq's up 0.3%, up 30. The 10-year's down 2 seconds with a yield of 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude continues its slide today, down 1.2% at $60.47 a barrel, with COMEX gold little changed at $14.8350 an ounce. Dollar yen 109.40. The euro's at $1.10.82 and the British pound $1.30.57. Boeing's unmanned CST-100 Starliner spacecraft failed to reach the International Space Station on its debut flight, dealing a new blow to the crisis-ridden aerospace giant. Right now, Boeing is down over 1%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Wow, a year ago today, where were we a year ago today? We were down, close to 20%. The markets were falling apart.
You're doing exactly what Tom Keene does every day because he's not here, so you're doing it.
I know,
instead.
so I am doing it. And what a difference a year makes. A year ago, our next guest came in, Peter Kenny, founder of the Strategic Board Solutions and Kenny & Company. He was in this studio a year ago saying, things aren't so bad. Let's get constructive. Peter Kenny, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Where do you stand now? You were super right.
Thank you.
What do we do now, do you think?
It's been a great year. I kind of expected this, pretty much more or less to the point on the S&P 500. I'm still very constructive, believe it or not, in spite of the fact that we've just seen a 28% gain for the S&P 500 this year, 2019. I'm still constructive, but much more modestly so. So instead of the 28% that we saw this year, I'm looking at maybe between 6 and 9% next year, may get us to 3,500 by the end of the year. The reason why I'm still constructive in spite of the fact that we've seen a 28% gain is because we have very low interest rates, great economic data, clear signs of re-engagement in terms of growth in the U.S. economy, great news in the trade front, and consumer sentiment, income, employment. This stuff is just super, super strong. And I think that we're going to continue to see that, the tide lift.
All right, Peter, there's a difference between 6 to 9% returns that steadily get developed over the year. That seems to be different than what people think is going to happen, where it's going to be front-loaded in the front half of the year and then the back half is going to be kind of rough based on political uncertainty. Yep. Would you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So in the first half of the year, what kind of returns can people expect?
I think first, by the end of the second quarter, I think you can look at maybe 7 to 9%. But it is definitely going to be much more choppy than we saw this year.
Even in the first half?
Even in the first half. And I would suggest that the volatility that we see peak next year will be in the first half.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. First of all, the CBOE options are suggesting that there's complacency in the market.
And
pretty much everything else is suggesting that as well.
And the VIX, if you look at the VIX with a 12 handle, there's complacency in the market. When you see those two indicators at the depressed levels that they're at, it's almost a near certainty that something is going to disrupt that calmness in the market. And I think that's likely to happen somewhere Q1, Q2. Now, I'm still constructive on the year, but I do think we're going to start seeing some volatility. It's just we just had too long a period without it.
So how much of your 6 to 8, 6 to 9% kind of return scenario for 2020 predicated upon a very benign Fed?
Oh, a big part of that. Great. Okay. Yes. That's a huge part of this because, we're heading into an election year, and we all know that the Fed historically in an election year tends not to be active in the market in terms of shifting policy. Now, the Fed
Lisa already told me. I was suggesting maybe we could have a rate increase at the data.
No.
Lisa, quote unquote, rejected that.
She's right. She's absolutely right. But no, we're going to continue to see the Fed add liquidity because we have the repo conversation.
Okay.
But that said, I don't think we're going to see much in the way of rates.
You reject that as well.
Yes.
I mean, it just seems implausible to me. They are so shell-shocked by what happened last year in December that there's no way that they're going to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the question is, are we going to actually see inflation pick up?
I think we may see a degree of inflation. And the reason why I say only a degree in spite of what we saw today in the data is because the global economy is not going to allow inflation to really rise above where we're seeing it right now.
Okay, but then how much inflation do we need to see before it disrupts the sort of complacency that we see around no inflation and that's being priced into markets?
I don't think that inflation is going to be the driver of what upsets the complacency.
Okay.
I just don't see it. We're seeing great.
He rejects that.
Yes.
Great employment numbers, great confidence, and great income gains. And we're seeing that in really healthy spending, but we're not seeing it filter through to the economy in terms of making things more expensive, with the exception of some real estate, some pockets, of course. But that's been a theme that we've been dealing with for 3, 4, 5 years.
We've seen in 2019 and this grind up in the market. Yeah. Periods during the year when people were saying, I got to go defensive, and then we'd see people going back into more cyclicals or maybe even the growth stocks.
Yeah.
How do you think the 2020 will be in terms of, do I take a little bit more risk with my portfolio or do I get a little bit more defensive?
Well, I think that people who've been around for any period of time at all and I was with a couple of pretty significant individuals last night in terms of the markets. The sense is that, listen, if I'm putting money to work in the market right now, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Why? Because of the run-up we've seen. Yeah. So I think if people are looking at their overall portfolio, they're going to look at a more defensive posture that's going to be fueled by policy. In other words, a degree of certainty that the markets might not otherwise provide. And I'm speaking specifically of infrastructure.
Okay, what do you think will be the worst performing asset class of 2020? What's the big loser?
I think it's going to be utilities.
Interesting.
I think it's going to be utilities. And the primary reason I say that is because with utilities, pricing is largely baked in. There's very little alpha out there that you can harvest that is going to be priced into a market where there's going to be a lot of liquidity and there's going to be a lot of money sloshing around in the market. It's not going to be looking for dividends.
Right. Well, so on the flip side, what's going to be the absolute best performing asset class?
I love infrastructure for 2020.
Okay.
Love heavy construction. I continue to be very, very engaged in the real estate space. I think
really?
In spite of the fact that we're seeing pockets, I think you're seeing pockets of I would suggest inflation in some real estate markets, but I think that's also fueling a wider growth in real estate demand and exposure in terms of investment. So secondary and tertiary markets are seeing real benefit now.
Do you think we're actually going to get a trade deal that's actually on paper that somebody can see, or are we just going to get tweets?
We're going to get a trade deal, and it is going to be a significant tailwind to the global narrative. And that's the thing. It's really how the globe looks at what the opportunity is in trade again.
Yeah, narrative is the key operative. It's not clear what that will do, but the narrative matters because it matters for business confidence.
We saw it in the fourth quarter last year. It really mattered on the flip side.
Narrative, terrible. Then narrative, wonderful. Now we're narrative. Pretty good. Peter Kenny, thank you so much for being with us. Peter Kenny, founder and Strategic Board Solutions, founder of Strategic Board Solutions, joining us here in our Interactive Broker Studios. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
Take care. Honestly, it's just it's interesting to see heading into next year how concrete this consensus is. That things will be okay. We're not heading into another recession. It's just a matter of how okay they will be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the economic data that we're seeing suggests that the consumer is still strong, and that lends support for the overall economy.
Are you going to be shopping a lot?
Probably not.
Okay, there we go. He doesn't go on cruises, doesn't like Disney World, isn't going to go shopping. Paul Sweeney, everyone. I'm Lisa Bromwitz. This is Bloomberg Markets.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year? I want a new phone. One with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
Far wing elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA Today to start listening.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Towards right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. World 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, Star Wars. We have another edition coming out this weekend, Skywalker. Mixed reviews. We'll take a look at what it means for the Walt Disney Company. Plus, we'll also take a look, our weekly look, at the municipal bond market. But first, let's chat with Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Paul, stocks here in the U.S. are moving higher alongside European shares as investors count down to the holiday break. The dollar's edging up. Treasuries are a little changed. The signing of a first phase U.S.-China trade deal is set for January, though terms still remain unclear. David Harrell, Harris Associates Deputy Chair, tells Bloomberg any movement forward on trade is good for the whole world.
Because, it's better than not having anything. And moving in the right direction with China, better than not having anything. And now I think the U.S. still has some issues with Europe. But, at least they're being approached and attacked, and we're seeking to get some sort of resolution. So any movement in this direction will be good for markets and will be good for the global economic growth, which is good for corporate profits.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. Looks green. S&P is up 0.5%, up 15. The Dow's up 0.3%, up 100. The Nasdaq's up 0.3%, up 31. 10-year is down 1/32. The yield 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is now down 1.6% at $60.18 per barrel. COMEX gold's down 0.1% at $14.82.90 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.47. The euro's $1.10.84, and the British pound $1.30.51. Fiat Chrysler's making an all-out push to clear away tens of thousands of vehicles that its dealers have yet to order, adding to tensions over a new data-driven production strategy that can lead to swelling inventory. Right now, Fiat Chrysler's up 0.25%. Ford's up just about 1%. And GM is up 0.2%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues now with Paul and Lisa.
Greg Jarrett, thank you so much. Let's take a look at small and mid-cap shares, because even though we are seeing record highs in the S&P and the Nasdaq, the Russell 2000 is still a bit away from their all-time highs. Joining us here, Dave Wilson with his Hanukkah tie. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor. What are we seeing in small caps?
Well, they're up, just not quite as much as larger companies. The Russell 2000 at the moment up 0.4%. The S&P 500 is higher by 0.5%, otherwise known as 0.5%. And one of the Russell's biggest gains belongs to Care.com, whose ticker is CRCM. The online marketplace for caregivers has risen about 13.5% after agreeing to a takeover by Barry Diller's IAC Interactive Corp. The all-cash deal is valued at about $500 million. AAR, ticker AIR, has added more than 14%. The aircraft parts supplier's earnings and revenue for the fiscal second quarter beat analyst average estimates in a Bloomberg survey. And Rite Aid, ticker RAD, has advanced 17.5%. The drugstore owner is higher for a second day after third quarter profit and sales top projections. Rite Aid rose yesterday by 42%. The Russell's steepest drop belongs to Abeona Therapeutics, the ticker ABEO. The drug developer has fallen more than 35% after raising $87.5 million in a sale of shares and warrants. The deal led to the resignation of Abeona's chairman and 2 directors. And CalAmp, ticker CAMP, has lost about 15.5%. Communications equipment maker gave an earnings forecast for the fiscal fourth quarter that was lower than estimates.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, thank you. Are you a big Star Wars fan?
Not especially.
Okay. It seems like not as many people are Star Wars fans as perhaps was the thought when the latest in the Star Wars saga, Skywalker, came out, and Disney was expecting big things, perhaps need to expect less big things. Joining us now, Geeta Ranganathan, a technology and media analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us from Princeton, New Jersey. Can you give us a sense of why people are getting less enthusiastic about Skywalker, the rise of Skywalker, which is the latest in the Star Wars incarnations?
Hi, Lisa. Sure. So it looks like at least the preliminary reviews from the critics haven't been very favorable. And so maybe the expectations have come down a little bit. But I don't think that is really going to matter a whole lot for, the performance of the movie itself. So, it looks like it's not pandering to the critics, but it is a very audience-friendly film. And so what we're seeing, at least the initial reactions on social media, is that most moviegoers are actually totally loving it. So I think it will have long legs.
So, Geeta, it's interesting. This has been the acquisition of Lucasfilms by the Walt Disney Company has been, a home run by any definition. But I guess there's some concern that is there some fatigue setting in here with this Star Wars saga? What's the company saying about that? Because it seems like there's movies coming out pretty frequently now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Paul. So this has, as you rightly pointed out, been one of the most successful film franchises of all time, very, very lucrative. But having said that, they have had some bumps in the road. So when Force Awakens came out in 2015, it was a staggering success. Then we had The Last Jedi, which was again a huge success in 2017. But then their spin-off last year, Solo, actually became the most high-profile flop of 2018. So, it had all these turbulent production headlines, very, very low box office numbers. And I think what that prompted Disney to do was kind of take a little bit of a pause and shelf this idea of putting out a Star Wars film every year. Instead, what they're doing is now they're kind of using the Star Wars IP across their portfolio. So they created new attractions at both of their domestic theme parks. They've created this new series for their Disney Plus streaming service. And so they're kind of trying to, they're taking a little pause on the theatrical front, but they're kind of trying to re-engage and re-energize the base with new content across their other properties.
One thing I'm struggling with is this idea that bad reviews will lead to fewer people turning out for the movie. Normally, that would seem to make sense. But in the case of something like an institution like Star Wars, isn't there a baked-in audience that will go no matter what the reviews are?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. In fact, it's funny because the last movie, which was, The Last Jedi, it actually had very strong critic reviews, but it polarized audiences. So, again, this movie doesn't necessarily please the critics, but it is a crowd pleaser. But as you mentioned, there is that super die-hard core fan base that's definitely going to go and watch the movie, especially because it's the final movie in the trilogy. So I think it's really more up to the casual fans. But again, the word of mouth, I think, is turning out to be pretty strong. So through the holiday season, I think it's going to have a pretty good theatrical run.
Geetha, talk to us about Star Wars in China. This is a franchise that was created before the Chinese market was even open. I know that's been a challenge for the Walt Disney Company.
It has. And so, the two big franchises, Marvel and Star Wars, Marvel typically performs really, really well in China. With Star Wars, there's not that much of a nostalgia factor. And so, we saw some pretty weak numbers come out actually from China even yesterday when the movie opened. This has been a day-and-date release for them. Hasn't performed very well. But then again, Disney really never has great expectations for the Star Wars movies in China. It's really more the Marvel films that tend to do extremely well there.
Hey, Geetha, thanks so much for chatting with us. Geetha Ranganathan, she's a senior media analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. She is the senior movie watcher for Bloomberg Intelligence, senior TV watcher for Bloomberg Intelligence. She gets to do all the fun things as a media analyst. So we'll see how this latest installment of the Star Wars saga pairs out here. You talk to some of the real fanboys like Ira Jersey and Eric Balchunas from Bloomberg Intelligence, and they are very negative on this, but that's just because they're crazy people. But I think, as Geetha mentioned,
if you're listening,
yes,
you know where he sits, so you can come.
Exactly.
Make
so,
fun
but
of
I
him
think,
later.
as Geetha was mentioning, the casual fan, this is still going to light it up in terms of box office. It's just a question: is it going to be as successful as some of the earlier ones?
You're not a big Star Wars fan, right?
I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but I do remember seeing the original at the movie theater on Long Beach Island in 1977, I think it was. It was a rainy day, so the parents kicked us out. We walked to the movie theaters, and we saw this thing called Star Wars, and it was like nothing we had ever seen before.
Did you like it?
Oh, it was fantastic. And then I saw the ones after that, but then, given the break, I kind of lost touch with it. But we'll see. Maybe I'll go see this. But right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Apollo real-life effort to reach the stars for NASA has had a setback.
Liftoff, the rise of Starliner, and a new era in human spaceflight.
Oh, the launch went well enough for Boeing's CST-100 Starliner, the crew capsule that wants to bring astronauts to the International Space Station as soon as next year. But about 50 minutes into the flight, the capsule was reported out of position for its orbital insertion burn. NASA Chief Jim Bridenstine says that meant it expended more fuel than expected, so it won't be able to dock with the space station. scheduled tomorrow. Now it is due to land in New Mexico as early as Sunday morning. Just in, a shooting at a municipal building in Winston-Salem, North Carolina has left 2 city employees dead, 2 others hurt. That word from the city manager to the Associated Press. No other details as yet. Police have set a news conference for 2 p.m. Wall Street time. Earlier, a city worker in Winston-Salem told local news outlets one of his coworkers ran out of the building, told him someone was shooting inside. City officials now say the situation has stabilized. After last night's testy Democratic debate in Los Angeles, the Democratic National Committee is setting the bar even higher for candidates to qualify for the next one. DNC Chairman Tom Perez says they'll need at least 5% support in 4 polls or 7% in 2 early state polls. The New York Times reports only 5 candidates currently qualify. The next debate is set for January 14th in Des Moines, Iowa. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Revisions, return policies. There are so many ways to redo a decision.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Do they have any path other than the courts?
Except here, we have to get it right the first time.
We always talk about the losers in a trade war. Are there winners?
So that you can too.
How does your modeling have to pivot to reflect a different scenario?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance?
Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, radio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
At Argos, it's not too late to get them their dream gifts. Shop a wide range of top brands including Lego, Beats and Fitbit. And with Christmas just around the corner, order right up until Christmas Eve to get same-day home delivery. With Argos, you're good to go. Subject to availability, delivery conditions apply. Christmas Eve, order by 1 p.m, 90% UK coverage.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
What better way to celebrate the holidays than with a subscription to TuneIn Premium? With a bottomless library of the world's best audio, it's a gift that keeps on giving. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
As we play out the 2010s, TuneIn's looking back at the music trends that defined the decade.
That's why I need a one dance.
The 2010s was the decade of the surprise album drop, where artists from Beyonce, Drake, and Frank Ocean to Radiohead, U2, and the late David Bowie skipped the traditional promotion cycle to bring their music directly to fans with little to no warning. Keep listening to TuneIn for more trends of the 2010s.
Spend Christmas Day listening to the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Featuring 5 big matchups on the holiday schedule. Unwrap the action starting at 12 Eastern when the Celtics take on the Raptors in Toronto, followed by the Bucks and the 76ers at 2:30. The holiday cheers continue with the Rockets and Warriors at 5 and the Clippers and Lakers at 8. And a showdown between the Pelicans and Nuggets at 10:30. 'Tis the season with the NBA on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
MSNBC is on TuneIn. Get up-to-the-minute coverage on news and events from around the world with MSNBC's live 24/7 station on TuneIn. At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with MSNBC's full lineup of shows, including Hardball with Chris Matthews.
Hi, I'm Chris Matthews. Thanks for listening to MSNBC on TuneIn.
And The Rachel Maddow Show. Plus, when news breaks, MSNBC has you covered with live updates, expert analysis, and more. Search MSNBC on TuneIn today.
What was your favorite podcast of 2019? Well, here's ours.
This is the Open Ears Project, a new daily podcast in which people tell us a story about the piece of classical music that means the most to them.
Part mixtape, part sonic love letter. The Open Ears Project is where people share a classical track that gives a glimpse into their lives and allows us to hear the music and each other differently.
Brought to life things that I couldn't really put into words.
Search Open Ears Project on TuneIn to check it out.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks are moving further into new record territory. Investors seem optimistic about improving trade relations between Washington and Beijing. The mood actually seems a bit festive today on the holiday approach. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.6% of 17. The Dow's up 0.4% up 113, and the Nasdaq's up 0.4% up 37. 10 years, little change. The yield 1.92%. West Texas Intermediate crude is down 1.3% at $60.40 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.2% at $14.8150 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.49. The euro $1.10.82. The British pound $1.30.45. Spending in the USA picked up in November. Income gains topped projections, offering hope for a solid holiday shopping season and indicating household consumption will continue to be the economy's main driver at year-end. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jerry.
Now on Bloomberg Markets, Unis in Focus with Joe Mysak.
Let's talk municipal bonds here. Paul Sweeney with you. Lisa Abramowitz just stepping out. She is multimedia. Lisa Abramowitz, as we all know, so she's taping some television stuff. But I'm joined here by our good friend Joe Mysak, editor of Bloomberg Brief, Bloomberg News, joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Joe, give us a sense. We know the stock market's up big, 27, 28%. We know investment-grade bonds had a great year, up 14, 15%. How did the municipal bond market perform this year? Pretty well, right?
Oh, more than 7%. Insane.
And what's a typical year for a municipal bond? I mean, just put it in context for us.
Like 2%.
Oh, so
3%.
So a fantastic year for municipals. So what's driving it? Is this just simply the fact that I can't deduct my state and local taxes, so I'm looking for some more tax-sheltered income?
Yes. Demand is crazy, and wow. Yeah, people are they're flooding into municipal bonds. It's really incredible. And you have so many bonds being taken away, through redemptions and maturities, calls.
So I want to get to the credit quality issue, because there's a couple stories I saw in the Bloomberg terminal this week where we've actually had some credit quality issues. I'm looking at a rice to lumber factory in California.
Okay.
What is a rice to lumber factory?
This is a brand new thing. It's a recycler. They're recycling rice waste, and they're going to produce fiberboard. I think it's medium density fiberboard, and a not untypical enterprise in the muni market, which is infatuated with mills, turning some sort of waste into something else. And, guess what? It's a little more difficult than you think. So even going back to the 90s, we've seen mills like this, and we've also seen them default. And it's the speculative wave of transactions that we've seen, story bonds, we call them, right?
Yep.
These, a lot of these are heading to default. So I would not be surprised. And so far this year, according to municipal market advisors, we've had about 45, 50 municipal bond defaults. Okay?
How is that a typical year?
That is a low number, lowish.
All right, so credit quality is still pretty solid.
I would not be surprised next year to see that number double. See 100 municipal bond defaults.
Why?
Just because the last several years, basically since 2016, 2017, we've seen a great number of these speculative deals because buyers have lost all their inhibition.
The municipal bond, I think, is just amazing. The one that's just across the river from Manhattan here with the indoor ski slope. What's it called? The Dream Mall?
The American Dream.
The American Dream. Okay.
Right.
As I understand it, those bonds are trading fine.
Well, so far. So, it depends how, when the bonds are sold.
That's the company top
and
actually,
those American Dream bonds were sold in 2017. But it depends when bonds are sold, and it depends how long they have, reserve funds, capitalized principal and interest. So that's why I say over the next few years, 2020, 2021 especially, 2022, because you have a few years lag. They run out of, a lot of these places run out of reserves, and I really would not be surprised to see a tripling in 2021, 2022, 150 bonds going to default.
All right, let's talk about the new issuance. So 2019 turned out to be a pretty good year, right? Close to
more than $400 billion, which is astounding. And next year, I think the top side is about, people see $450 billion,
right,
which would be a record.
And a lot of this, is it mostly refinancing, or are we actually getting some spending done?
Oh, we're getting a lot of spending done. I mean, one of our themes has been, America, you're getting new stuff.
Okay.
So there's
that bridges and tunnels and roads and things?
Bridges, roads, sidewalks, shopping centers, retail complexes. There's a deal coming in the market. I don't know whether it's going to be this week or next week. It's for an enormous sports center in Ohio, a youth sports center.
Wow. All right, talk to me about the investment or the taxable municipal bond market, because to me that's an oxymoron. What is the taxable municipal market?
Well, you've really touched upon something, and this also segues into your previous question. Taxable municipals have been booming this year, and taxable just meaning they're not tax exempt. They're not the interest on them is taxed by the federal government. These have been used for advance refundings by municipalities because tax-exempt advance refundings were prohibited by the 2017 Tax Act. So taxable municipal bonds, their issuance has swelled this year, I think, to about $80 billion when you include corporate QSIPs in there and things like that.
Who's buying taxable municipals?
Well, really, in this country, you have investors buying them and you have investors abroad buying them, especially investors abroad who like the idea that you have some yield at all compared to a lot of their sovereigns.
Interesting. I mean, I just don't get it. I own municipal bonds because they're triple tax-free, and I don't know. But I guess I get the idea of the international buyers coming in because at least it's a positive yield. Joe Mysak, Muni's editor for Bloomberg Briefs, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy your holiday next week. Looking at the markets here, another green day, as we've seen, and as Tom Keene likes to say, we are grinding higher on the equity markets. Have the S&P up about 0.5% today. The Dow up about 0.4 0.4%, and the NASDAQ up about 0.4%. The Russell Index, those small cap stocks also up about 4% today. So across the board, strong movement in the equities here. Muted trading as you would expect, but again, grinding higher on equities. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are higher, but trading could be volatile due to market mechanics. Options and futures on stocks and indexes all expire at the same time, an event that usually drives trading volumes higher. U.S. Steel delivering a load of harsh news right before Christmas. The industrial icon warned of a fourth quarter loss, will lay off more than 1,500 workers and slash its dividend. The announcement from the company highlights the challenges facing American steelmakers. The union representing Southwest flight attendants has asked the carrier to put off hiring new workers until Boeing's grounded 737 MAX resumes commercial flights, saying existing employees need all the work they can get. And Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is projected to take in $160 million to $190 million in its first 3 days. That's according to Box Office Pro. That forecast is down from as much as $225 million earlier in this week, before a rush of tepid reviews from critics. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6s with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile.